Hello. Hold on. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I can see everyone.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the December 9th, 2021 work session of the Tarrant County College Board of Trustees. Our board president, Ms. Ayala, is not able to be here, but she is, I understand, online listening to the meeting. So, Mr. Greenhill, I'd admonish you that she's keeping an eye on you. And I understand Dr. Morrison will be here to join us in just a minute. So we'll call the meeting to order. We have one individual who's requested the opportunity to speak to the board, and that's Carl Ronecker. Okay. Well, we'll just get right to you.
I'm actually wanted to apologize. Last time, I guess I yelled. Didn't mean to. I played electric guitar too long. My hearing's very bad. Okay. So anyway, what I'd like to ask the board to do, I talked last time about HR and how it's being run. And what I would like to petition the board is you have one employee that employs the chancellor. We have district policies at Tarrant County College, and one of the most important policies is DH local. And that speaks to the ethics, how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to treat people. And we have a leader in HR that's violating those policies. I would like to ask you to put her on administrative leave while you investigate whether the allegations are true. And I'm going to go over some of those allegations today. Another thing I'd like to talk about, 2008 fall term, we had 39,596 students. 2017, we had 52,956. 2021 fall, we have 40,562. You all know that. That's a decline from 2017 of 23%. Currently in HR, we have 33 full-time employees. You have 2 unfilled positions. In 2017, to the best of my recollection, I used to do the data, we had 27 full-time employees. So we have a decline of 23% in our student enrollment, and yet we have an increase of 30% of the number of people in HR full-time positions. Why is that? I petitioned the board, why did those positions get approved when you have a decline in enrollment? Why do you need more people to do less work? It's disgusting to me, and it's in violation of district policy, DH local. You were elected to the board in reference to taxpayers, of which I'm a taxpayer in Tarrant County College. I own property here, and that is just crazy to me. Okay, no discrimination, no harassment. Okay, let's talk about if somebody had a problem with the executive director of human resources, and they would contact that person's supervisor, which would be Susan. And what would Susan do? Susan would schedule a meeting with that perpetrator, and I use that term because a lot of what has happened is so bad, and bring them together to have a meeting. That is not how it should go. And the behavior has cost a lot of forced constructive discharges, and I guess my time's up. So I'll keep coming back every time until I'm able to finish. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If I can, at this time, I want to call on the Chancellor, who has a few remarks he wants to make.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Barr. The board has been notified of this, but from on record in the rest of our community here. Dr. Joe B. Rushing was the very first chancellor of Tarrant County College. Joe passed away yesterday at 100 years old. I, as a young, very young, very, very young person, had an opportunity to engage with Joe a few times, and just a wonderful human being, extremely humble, and a great public servant. And for this time, I'd ask you all for a moment of silence in Joe's memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Giovanni. We'll move on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the review of the board business items and trustee remarks. We have the draft minutes from the November 11th work session and the draft minutes for the November 18th board meeting. Are there any issues, questions that any of the board members have relative to those draft minutes? If not, then we'll move on to trustee remarks. Does anyone have any remarks you'd like to make at this time? Trustees? A lot of silence here. Okay. Item number 4 is the Chancellor's overview. Dr. Giovannini.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. As we look at the agenda today, there are no academic planning items. However, there are a couple of significant items related to advancing learning in the technology arena, specifically on related to healthcare, simulation, virtual reality, augmented reality, keeping current in all those spaces, those evolving spaces, for our students to be best prepared to go into the classroom or into the workplace. And then second, some work in the academic labs to ensure that students have the best technical experiences in those spaces. So look forward to the presentation and the chatting on those items. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will now review the proposed action items, agenda items for the December 16th board meeting. Item number 5A is consideration and approval of the purchase of hardware from Apple Incorporated to acquire an Apple Macintosh computing devices for labs. Mr. Killingsworth.
Yes. This is a third step in an ongoing, each time you guys see me here. So thank you, trustees, and thank you, Chancellor, for seeing me again. As we continue to expand our virtual desktop environment, we have one more space to go. In the last two sessions, we've approved the expansion of the VDI infrastructure to build the foundation for what we're doing. And then we approved the replacement of all non-Apple devices through our various labs with 1,000 VDI terminals. That's all in process. This is the last step. We have a large number of Apple labs that are up to 10 years old. So the technology is nowhere near where it should be for our students. So in utilizing HERF funding again, we're looking to replace all of the Apple labs to update their technology to current modern technology utilizing Apple to go forward, and we will include that into the refresh of the lab spaces by the end of the fiscal year. The expectation is that all of our labs will either be VDI or brand new Apple technology for all of our students. Any questions?
Joe, or I'm sorry, Dave, would you speak to VDI?
Yeah, virtual desktop infrastructure. So what that does is it allows us to have all of the classrooms built on our servers so that each lab space can be any classroom we want based on the technology we have and based on the virtual classrooms that we have. So this will be the last step in making sure every lab space is as functional, as flexible as possible. This just happens to be these particular leftover spaces have to be dedicated to Apple technology because certain disciplines, especially arts, photography, Photoshop, those kind of base technologies are best taught on Apple lab equipment because that's what's used out in the public sector.
Good. Any questions?
Good afternoon.
Good
I
afternoon.
apologize for my late arrival. I just have one question. And it is to ask if the technology for the faculty members is being upgraded parallel with the other upgrades. I understand that as people were remote, they were using many different kinds of devices, and now that they're transitioning back to campus, and some may still be partially remote, that's a concern. So I just wanted to ensure that we do everything necessary to make sure as we upgrade for the students that we certainly also upgrade for faculty and staff.
The November work session, we had $2.9 million in equipment that is specifically for addressing faculty and staff. So by the end of the fiscal year, the expectation is other than devices that are currently have a meaningful life cycle left, everything for everybody will be upgraded.
Okay, and I have another question.
Sure.
Do we also provide equipment for adjunct faculty?
So working with the provost's office, we had a long conversation between the vice presidents and the provost and myself. And what we decided is once we expanded the loaner pool from 1,000 devices to 3,000 devices, and just a note, the other 2,000 you approved several board sessions ago just arrived. So we're getting ready to deploy that to all the libraries. Adjuncts are allowed to check out a loaner Surface device from the libraries just like the students. We're going to monitor consumption, and if at some point we find consumption starts to exceed capacity, we'll look at expanding the loaner pool even farther. But adjuncts are allowed to check out from the library just like students.
Okay, and a final question. I've noticed in advertisements that many institutions, as a part of their enrollment, offer devices. I happen to know even 22 years ago, in order to enroll in Howard University School of Medicine, having a certain laptop was a requirement. And so I'm just wondering, is that on the table to discuss in our future as a part of our enrollment for students, that they would have a device of their own, which might give them more constant access. And if
So-
it's not on the table, I'd like to ask that that become a part of the conversation.
So currently, the plan was the bring your own device. The name got changed slightly, but that came from Illy and the provost office about expectation of please bring your own device if at all possible, and if not, the students specifically have access to our loaner pool. I am perfectly willing to have a conversation around, can we provide devices to students? It's a much larger, broader, and expensive proposition, but I am perfectly happy to have that conversation as we go forward.
Because it's expensive to provide it, but in terms of learning loss and learning opportunity, it's expensive not for students not to have it.
Yeah, my feeling is if the college can provide the funding to make it happen, I can absolutely, from a functional standpoint, make that happen.
Well, and even if we had a test program, I think it's worth us looking at and trying. Not just writing it off wholesale by saying it's too expensive or da-da-da-da-da. So I know that people operating in that zone of genius will come up with some great ideas in that regard. Thank you, Chancellor.
Chancellor, if you would follow up on that, it'd be helpful. And I would agree with Dr. Morrison's comment. Let's just don't write it off without some exploration about the pilot program or whatever might be possible. Are there any other questions or comments about item 5A? All right, let's move on to 5B, consideration and approval of the purchase of hardware from Microsoft Corporation and Pathway Communications to acquire mobile education and conferencing devices. Mr. Killingsworth?
With the ongoing need for the establishment of distance collaboration, the district must acquire devices to facilitate continuous learning and collaboration in any workable space. Acquisition of this collaborative equipment for the district will ensure that, as needed, the faculty and staff will have the means to create a collaborative mobile learning space for education at any time. The necessity to enhance the mobility is critical for keeping the organization agile and meeting the long-distance learning needs of our students. What we're looking to do is acquire a combination of 50 devices. It's a lot of you have seen them, either the Hub 2 from Microsoft, which is a large Surface device on a mobile platform, as well as the ClearTouch on a mobile platform. So we're trying to split so that the technology that people are comfortable with, we have two routes for people to utilize. This will get us, for the various spaces like HR, facilities, et cetera, and for teaching purposes, we'll be able to have these you can request them to any space and then allow any space to become a collaborative learning environment.
Any questions?
And this will also be HER funded.
Also be,
HER funded.
I do have a question. As we had an opportunity to tour through the Southeast campus spaces, we were able to see that they had done some significant work in, I think, what they were calling learning commons, kind of pod type areas where you could employ screen sharing up to different screens. Given that a lot of the distance collaboration tools are being used not just necessarily in the classroom, would there be an opportunity, or is there a type of device that could also be used by students on kind of a checkout basis to engage in that collaborative learning that may not be currently facilitated by anything other than Zoom? I think while we were there, we were watching, two students who were sitting in a pod talking with another two students who were on the screen, and it was kind of like sharing your iPad, moving the iPad from person to person, rather than having kind of a static opportunity for everybody to participate in it. So I'm thinking through how devices like this could be used not just for in-class teaching environments, but also collaboration among students that's not happening in those spaces during classroom time.
Yeah, I could see this technology leveraged in that way. We would need to pilot it, make sure, obviously, the technology is made available in a way that's consistent and repeatable for student checkout. We're currently looking at leveraging the Ad Astra platform specifically for booking, like our video production people. That could be leveraged the same way. So we could expand this fleet later if we feel like it's a workable and a consumable thing for the students. I don't see why we couldn't do that. But we would definitely have to put some foundation and some rails around it to make sure that the technology is readily available, figure out what the consumption will look like and how we do the check-in and check-out. Because these types of devices are exactly what you're looking for, but they're not exactly carrying a laptop into a room. There's some
configuration.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually using Ad Astra specifically, I've seen it employed at another Fort Worth-based.
And it would allow students
university.
to plan a space they want to do this at and then request the equipment they need to have that shared space. When I was at TAC CIO recently, I saw, I don't know which college it was off the top of my head, but they had a thing around their commons where they had rooms where it was student driven. They had these devices on the walls and students could check those spaces out and do their collaboration in these small pod rooms. And I thought it was a great idea, and I think it's something we should continue to look towards as we evolve our technology platform.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We're moving on to item 5C, consideration and approval of hardware purchase from Advanced Tech Consultants, SHI Governmental Solutions, Oxford Medical, and Microsoft Corporation, gigXR and Skilitics Health, and acquire virtual and augmented reality software to acquire software. Dr. Madison, that's the longest introduction I've ever seen.
Good
A lot of
afternoon.
different companies.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. With that long introduction of the item, I thought it would be helpful to provide some additional context for this agenda item as the college continues to advance learning and learning support in technical programs and develops academic continuity strategies to support TC students in challenging and unpredictable times such as a pandemic. The current use of simulation technology, simulation technology has made significant inroads in the delivery of healthcare professions education for the past 25 years. And it has certainly played a critical role in how we at TCC educate, train, certify, and prepare TCC healthcare profession students to enter the workforce job ready. Now, by now, many of you are familiar with our current program-based simulated environments, such as the live hospital and the various simulation suites that the college has designed at the Trinity River Campus East. And some of those environments and associated technologies are displayed on this first slide here. These spaces were designed and infused with technology to help faculty create real-world scenarios for students that foster a sense of presence and immersion within the hospital or diagnostic imaging setting. And this type of simulation is often seen as a method of learning that can be defined by time and space. Well, there are some new technologies in simulation, and that is akin to all the things you read in that particular line item, that agenda item there. And these new technologies are changing the way the healthcare industry thinks about time and space in relationship to patient access to services and to ensure patient safety. And those same technologies are changing the way healthcare simulation education is delivered. And here are some examples here. One significant change is the use of immersive technology such as virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed or merged reality. Immersive technology use in simulation enables not only active but virtual learning environments for students when physical access to simulation spaces, such as the ones previously shown on the first slide, is not possible, or when access to clinical settings or clinical space is limited amongst our hospital partners. And this focus on active learning and the use of immersive technology complements the insights and developing recommendations that stem from one of the ILLI's principals focus teams dedicated to studying how to optimize and integrate the use of immersive learning technologies at TCC. This team, championed by Dr. Blankenbaker and led by Dr. Tom Mills, with representation from Learning Commons and IT, has also generated quite a bit of faculty and staff enthusiasm about the potential of the use of this technology across the curriculum to advance student learning, all to help students connect what they're learning to how they can apply what they learn. So in this particular proposal, item 5C, this will help the college advance the use of these new technologies. You can go to the next slide. The use of these new technologies, and thought I'd give you some images of what these items and the software look like as it relates to this particular agenda item. It would also help us to expand our capacity to support remote student learning to ensure academic continuity. Not going to go into a lot of detail about the particular items, but please note that all of the software or the devices that you use, that you see here, will be strategically integrated into all clinical courses, both the associate degree nursing program and the vocational nursing program. There's OMS software that has functionality to allow us to design scenarios that incorporate interprofessional practice involving simultaneous use by additional healthcare science program students, which means that students can be remote and interacting with each other remotely. So they don't have to come into a space to interact, but they can remote in their respective areas in order to engage with the use of this particular software. For example, clinical scenarios can be designed for programs like medical assistance, patient care tech, and certified nursing aid. There's one, I'll call out one particular, two particular products because they are somewhat different, and that's the Z-Space Inspire, which provides a mixed reality 3D learning experience that supports remote and on-site student learning for pre-healthcare students. So students who are taking anatomy and physiology will have access to the use of this particular software. And then Skilitics Health Virtual Radiography Simulator, first of its kind, which provides a realistic learning platform for radiographic technology students who need to practice their X-ray exams. And this is also an they need to demonstrate for accreditation purposes a number of advanced procedures in X-ray and everything that comes along with it. Listed in your memo is a list of advantages associated with the adoption of these products. And also, there is an update to the quote that will be referenced in the next iteration of the memo. And that update refers to the physical science software that was actually, that was accidentally left out from that particular packet. And that was an update to the ATC quote, and it's a reflection of it reflects an increase of $6,910. So that's just a little bit about the software and the new technologies that we are using and applying in the healthcare professions educational setting.
Okay, let me ask you, when I see this many different vendors involved, various softwares from different vendors, we're talking about hardware as well as software here, is that correct?
That's correct.
I get nervous about integration of all the systems together. What's the plan to resolve conflicts or when issues arrive from multiple vendors? Are you comfortable that's been adequately explored? You understand? Am I making myself clear without?
I understand it, but I think you want a better answer than
So
I do.
Okay.
each of those software platforms represents a different area. So they're focused very specifically to certain things. So they actually don't really need to integrate with each other.
Okay.
The hardware itself, the ATC, the Z-Space, comes with its own specialized software. So it's augmented reality. So I'll give you an example. So if you ever had kids or grandkids that played Pokemon Go and they turn the camera on and they can see it in their screen. You have glasses and you can see a heart or a pair of lungs. That's one specific platform. This is multiple platforms servicing multiple disciplines in different ways. So they don't really necessarily meet. The Oculus, which is the large piece, one of the large pieces we ordered, actually works with multiple pieces of the software. So they're delivering to the disciplines. So the integration and cross functionality should not be an issue. And we've asked the vendors and we've looked at it multiple times, and some of this is already in place on campus, so it should not be an issue. If it is, we will help them with that.
I have a much more simplistic note to add to this, and that is that whenever we have a contract that's under consideration, part of our internal process when it involves hardware and software is to ask our IT department to take a look at it, to look at exactly what you're talking about, issues like compatibility and whether or not it fits in with the rest of our servers. So that's something that we address as early on in the process as possible, just as a matter of course.
Good. Thank you.
Just one comment. As the proud owner of a new Oculus 2 Quest that my children don't yet know about, so I guarantee none of them are watching this right now. You have a really good price, bulk price on 200, so kudos on that.
Any other?
I have a question.
Certainly.
On the device that they have, will they be able to take those home with them, the glasses? Because you said they could do this virtually when they're studying.
Yes.
So I'm assuming you're going to check them out and let the students take those home.
Yes.
And then they'll be able to use those on their computers at home.
Use it with the technology assigned. So it comes as a package. So they take the package with them, and they'll have access to everything with them. All the tools they need will be with them.
Okay. And then they'll check those back in?
Of course.
Okay.
So when I see the pictures that I'm looking at, I'm thinking Trinity River Campus. The other campuses that have anatomy and physiology and classes like that, do they have access to these same areas of learning opportunities? Or this specifically, we will start telling people that are planning to be nurses or that they need to take A&P at this particular campus?
So for the technology that is specifically designed to support those healthcare professions programs, the technology is for use within those particular programs. For the pre-healthcare professions, or meaning students taking anatomy and physiology and physical sciences or what have you, the ILI focus team led by Dr. Tom Mills, in collaboration with the Vice Presidents of Academic Affairs, they are looking at the use and studying the use of immersive learning technologies to determine to what extent we need to scale broader use or to continue using it as is. All indications based on preliminary assessments that have been done to date suggest that students are very excited about the opportunity to use this technology, new for us, it's been around for a while, but these new technologies to really help keep them connected to the curriculum and learning as part of our 3G8P strategic imperative.
And I can see how important that would be for kinesthetic learners to be able to kind of put their hands on that in that way to help them to visualize and be able to better understand the concepts that are being presented. So, thank you.
Dr. Madison, so good to see you today, and thank you
as well,
as always, for your presentation. I would just like to say, in the interest of one college, that I just think it would be bold and right to broaden the use of that technology to those classes, because what if through that use of that technology, a student's love for science blossomed and bloomed? They may fall in love with anatomy and physiology and want to go further, because that's more real life for them. And so as much excitement as we can build into all of our programs, I want to encourage all of the geniuses on our staff to do that. Let's don't hold back. Let's push forward in a very bold and engaging way.
So at all of our campuses, in the sciences areas where students articulate their interest in healthcare professions, they have access to immersive learning tools now. This is just Immersive Learning Tools 2.0, and we really want to see if there is an appetite, and we really want to have an opportunity to study it. And Dr. Mills, along with the Vice President of Academic Affairs, they've kind of have a plan as to how they, and working with ILLI, of course, how they like to study it and then report about its efficacy in terms of being a viable learning tool to scale later on in the future.
So just being unappreciative of your time, but allow me to share an illustration from 40 years ago. When DFW was dedicated, there was great controversy over what to name the terminals. And I'm told that they talked to a lot of different populations in Tarrant County. And finally, that it was a kindergarten class who came up with the naming structure of A, B, C, D, East and West. So I say that to say, sometimes when we're studying things at the highest philosophical level, it's a great idea to ask the person who may have had no experience or exposure to it at all and see what kind of ideas they might come up with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, observations? Thank you, Dr. Medicine.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on to advancing capital improvements. Item 5D is consideration and approval of a contract with the Air Balancing Company, Inc. for testing and balancing services on the Southeast Campus.
So I regret to inform you that this is not nearly as interesting as what you just listened to, but the next couple, these are similar to the ones that you've already previously approved for the Northwest Campus. But as we talked about, I believe last month, the testing and balancing is for evaluating temperature and environmental control systems to make sure that they're operating as specified and to the maximum level of efficiency. So we're getting this firm on board for the duration of the Southeast project.
Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you. Going to item 5E, consideration and approval of contract with Terracon Consultants for materials testing, also on the Southeast Campus.
Yes, so again, similar to the other large projects you've seen, this is a firm to do materials testing, both in the lab and the field, to make sure that they meet specifications and construction standards, things like cement, steel, those kinds of things.
Any questions? All right. Item 5F is consideration and approval of a letter of no objection to the Foreign Trade Zone Board allowing for the Foreign Trade Zone designation through the Alliance Corridor FTZ for TTI Inc. for its facility at 5050 Mark IV Parkway.
Yeah, so this is the first one of these I've seen since I've been here. There are, I believe, 6 of them that the college has previously issued letters of no objection. But for the benefit of the group, to refresh everyone's memory, I've got a slide deck that I'll share with you to remind you what a foreign trade zone is. In addition, I'll mention that I have a couple of people here from, I've got Jim Irvin from TTI as well as Josh Griffith from Hillwood, who are both here if there are any questions after we go through very quickly. So you've seen other forms of economic development support that the college provides through the tax increment reinvestment zones. This is another similar thing where the various taxing entities get involved to help further some economic goals. So it's basically a zone that is created where goods can land and be manipulated, further manufactured, and so on without going through customs on the front end. It allows industry to defer and reduce and eliminate some of their duties, manage their inventory taxes, reduce import expenses, those kinds of things. Basically, the U.S. Congress created it so that we could improve our foreign trade as well as create jobs and here locally. So that's the kind of tool. Alliance, in particular, is a significant inland port, and so that's where a number of our facilities are, or our places where we've consented to these zones. So basically, in order to apply for them, they have to have a letter of no objection from the local taxing entities, including TCC. There's no loss in tax revenue in most instances because it's inventory that does not exist today that will end up being stored or utilized in a facility here. So it's new. It wasn't previously taxed, so we're not going to have any lost income. I will share with you in some instances there is existing inventory that you would no longer collect personal and property taxes on. And we have one of those with Mouser, which is an affiliate company of TTI, where we actually have an agreement with them where they pay us a payment in lieu of taxes to make sure that we're whole for tax revenue that we otherwise would have received. So again, why do we benefit from this? Basically, it's the general economic vitality of the region. Property improvements will occur at the facility that they are going to improve in order to function at the address that we described. And then again, support of the Alliance Corridor, and all it does is a significant inland port. But I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you'd like to hear anything more about TTI, they are here, as I mentioned. In your packet is a sample letter that the Chancellor will sign with the approval of the board. Oh, and I should also mention too, I'm sorry, I have another slide. The City of Fort Worth is scheduled to approve this or consider this next Tuesday. The county and the school district have already approved their letters of no objection. The other thing I'll mention is that, again, the original foreign trade zone for TTI was established back in 2012, and they committed to a $20 million investment and 100 jobs at that time. They have met and exceeded that. This is an expansion of that existing zone by adding 550 Mark IV Parkway. And you've got a map that you can see the location up just southwest of the intersection of I-35 and Loop 820. The property there. And that is it. And so now, if you have any questions for me or for TTI about this, we'd be happy to answer them.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want them to come and be with us and we not hear their voices. So
Okay,
I would like to have them to come forward and make some remarks to it.
Thanks for that. I'm Jim Irvin with TTI. I'm actually the
What does that stand for?
Today, it doesn't stand for anything. Back when it was created 50 years ago, this is our 50th anniversary, it was Tectonic Technologies, something to that effect, and there was another company by that name, so we just went with the initials. So TTI is a dominant global distributor of electronic components, capacitors, resistors, that type of thing. It started here 50 years ago. And Paul Andrews unfortunately passed away this year during our 50th anniversary. But he left us a great legacy. Of course, he sold the company to Berkshire Hathaway several years back, and so they have encouraged us to spend some of their money and expand, and we've done that. We've grown exponentially over the last several years, and in fact, the facility that we committed to buying, our building, is built. We've had to add on to that facility already. We're just in the process of completing that right now. Just tremendous growth that we'll see TTI and its group of family of companies hit $5 billion probably this year. So it is these kinds of programs. I told Josh the other day, I think that TTI is a great example of how well the FTZ program works, because we've taken those savings and reinvested them in the company so that we could continue to grow and bring in more people. And actually, this 50/50 location represents a new landmark for TTI in that we own several smaller semiconductor group companies, and we're bringing all those together under one umbrella called XTG, Exponential Technology Group. I do know what that stands for. And this will actually be their global headquarters. So we're actually bringing a new business into Fort Worth. And so it makes sense for us to bring this into the foreign trade zone as part of our expansion, because there will be some benefits to that. But along with that, this building needs considerable work, and so there'll be capital improvements made there. We'll need new equipment there. So there will be those benefits coming from this as well. And so I think it's great that we were able to take this opportunity to grow TTI into its next phase and bring a new company into Fort Worth. Any questions?
So I have a couple. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And since Tarrant County College was created in 1965, and we're approaching 60 years, it's a great reflection on the creativity of the era of the 60s. So it gives us all a legacy to build on. I have wondered, do you have a tuition reimbursement program for your employees?
Actually, we do, yes.
And do you have students who come to Tarrant County College and other areas?
That I specifically don't know because I'm not involved in that part. I do know we do connect with other colleges in the area, and we will bring in students. And any opportunity we have, we would certainly be interested in listening to those where we can link up with those in similar programs here. But we do enjoy being involved with, those are our next, employees. And so we enjoy providing opportunity.
Great. So I'd invite you to look over our 120 certificate programs and degree programs, see how you might incorporate some of those programs into your training and hiring and help us train, certify, educate some young and older people who might become a part of your workforce and part of the tax-paying base in Tarrant County. I love to see this kind of investment. Most of us always look for Tarrant County-based partners for us to do business with. So we're excited to have you. I'm excited to have you come and to learn of your great work.
Very good. I'll give a side note that has nothing really to do with this, but I'm associated with an international trade compliance group, and we're also looking for opportunities to connect with colleges on teaching people about trade compliance as my job. And we find it interesting that you don't find that as a box to check on a lot of things that ask for employment. And so it's one of our goals to make that a recognizable real job because it's in great demand right now. And so any association we can get educating people that like supply chain or international trade, it's another great opportunity. Maybe we can talk about that someday too.
Absolutely, a conversation somebody needs to have.
I think we need to ask the Chancellor to get Corporate Solutions to reach out to TTI.
Shannon, I'm sure Shannon is watching.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate your input. And Dr. Morrison, thank you for suggesting we call on him and ask him to make remarks.
Sure.
Does anyone else have a question or comment? Let me just say that Paul Andrews was a good friend, and when we were in the process of raising money to support the bond election for TCC about 18 months ago, I remember calling him, and he generously donated to support the effort to promote the bond election. And he was very much a supporter of TCC. Appreciate that. It's a great Fort Worth corporation, great Fort Worth story.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Does anybody have any further questions for Ms. Alanace on relative to the foreign trade zone? Anything else to add, Susan?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll move on to item 5G, consideration and acceptance of the annual comprehensive financial report.
So it's that time of year, and so the Finance Department has been hard at work preparing financial statements and working with our external auditor. The Audit Committee of the board met yesterday and heard a full briefing that you'll hear here momentarily, and then next week you'll be asked to accept the results of that audit. I'll be turning it over to Dallas Duggar, who was the lead on the project this year.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Dallas. I'm a partner with Weaver, served as the audit partner for this year. As mentioned, I did meet with the audit committee yesterday to go through the results of the fiscal year 2021 audit, and I'm excited to share the highlights of those results with you all today. So I did rotate. This was my first year on the engagement. Y'all previously have worked with James Fitz as the partner. I also was supported by a team of staff members, managers, seniors. We also did utilize the hub firm of Robert Hernandez, who performed alongside us a significant amount of the audit work as well. Weaver specifically has a focus on governmental agencies. It's our largest audit industry as a practice. We have a specific higher ed involvement and focus. We have over 20 higher ed audits that we complete each year. We are very active in the higher ed related organizations throughout the year, serve on a numerous amount of boards, and we also are very active with the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Accountability Office. We have members on that board who review CAFR or ACFR reports on a regular basis. So the audit process this year began in July, where we came out and performed interim work. We gained an understanding of the relevant internal controls that impact your financial statements. And we also do some control testing on those controls and do testing over federal and state awards. The fieldwork is substantially completed in October and November, where we review your financial statements, the material transactions that occurred during the year, as well as the material ending balances, all in anticipation of completing the audit in December, and we will be able to issue that report after the board meeting next week. So our audit is performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, as well as generally accepted government auditing standards for the test work that we do over the federal and state awards. We perform what's called single audits, so testing over compliance, as well as controls over compliance for the federal and state awards that we select each year. So this year, HERF has been mentioned a few times at the meeting already. The HERF program, which was part of the CARES Act, was selected again as major program. And then we also tested the Student Financial Aid Program. Those were the two major federal programs we looked at. And then we tested the TEOG state program as another major program that we selected for testing. So we test the compliance not only over the grants that we're looking at, but also over any other applicable laws and regulations for the district, as well as compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act. So we took a risk-based approach, as we do on all of our audits, where we go through your financials and identify areas of heightened risk. We focus our time and effort on testing those areas. So for the district, that included the federal and state grant programs, disbursements, including payroll and capital asset purchases during the year, as well as revenue recognition. So we test internal controls over financial reporting compliance, we test compliance, and ultimately our audit plan is designed to provide reasonable assurances to whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement, as well as being free of material noncompliance as it relates to the grant programs that we select. So the report, which previously was referred to as the CAFR, they changed the acronym a little bit for this year. Now it's the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, is comprised of a few different areas. So it starts with the introductory section, which includes a transmittal letter. And then you go into the financial sections. So that's going to include our auditor's report, and then the management discussion and analysis. That's a very useful section to go through because it has very good commentary on the financial and non-financial transactions that occurred during the year that impacted the statements that we look at. And then we have the financial statements, so your statement of net position, changes of revenue and expenses and cash flows, and then the footnotes. And then you have some required supplementary information. So this section is a GASB, governmental accounting requirement to include within the report. We don't audit this area, but we do ensure that the numbers within the area do tie back and reconcile to the information that we do audit. So the required supplementary information includes information related to the pension and the other post-employment benefit items that impact your financial statements. I do want to point out that the information related to pension and OPEB, as we call it, that information is provided by TRS and ERS and is audited at the state level. And the state provides the information to management to be able to perform and record the necessary journal entries to record the district's proportionate share of those obligations. So next you have additional supplementary data that's required by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. From there you have the statistical section, which has various information of 10-year comparative data. And then the final two sections relate to the single audits. So the reporting and our results of the testing of the federal and state programs. So some highlights for this year from the financial statements. We have total assets here at 8/31/2021 of $1.73 billion. That's a 4% increase, and the primary driver of that increase is an increase in grants receivable. That'll stand out as its own line item on the statement of net position. The reason for that large increase relates to a large receivable at year end related to the HERF federal grant program. And then general investment growth and performance also drove that asset number up compared to prior year. If you look at net position, and net position is your assets minus your liabilities, that was up 7% from prior year. It was $1.147 billion at the end of August 31st, 2021. A few drivers of that, again, were HERF. The amount of revenue recognized this year related to that program was about $50 million greater than fiscal year 20. Salary costs were down about $8 million compared to prior year related to changes in headcount. And then we also saw that there were other general cost reductions like travel and other types of expenses related to just remote working that occurred during fiscal year 2021. If you look at the revenue totals, revenue was about 3% higher than prior year. For the year in 2021, it was $512 million. I mentioned it a few times, but the HERF revenue was a key driver in that, going up compared to prior year. And then your increase in net position, so your revenues minus your expenses, was a total of roughly $75 million for 2021. So we do issue a few different reports related to the results of our testing. So the first relates to the results over the financial statements. So we will be issuing an unmodified or a clean audit opinion related to the financials, which is the highest form of assurance that we're able to provide. We noted no noncompliance that was material to the financial statements, nor did we note any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies within the internal controls that we reviewed. We'll also issue a report or reports related to the federal single audit that we performed, in which there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control over compliance, and no material compliance findings within the major federal programs that we looked at. And again, that was the Student Financial Aid Program as well as the HERF funding. And then lastly, we have our results for the state awards. For that too, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control over compliance, and no material findings were noted as a result of the testing performed. So about as clean of an audit as you can have. I do want to mention too that we evaluate the key estimates that are impacting your financial statements and look at the assumptions that go into making those estimates. So the more material ones that impact your financial statements relate to the estimates around pension and other post-employment benefits. I will reiterate that that information is audited at the state level, and the information related to the district's proportionate share is provided by management in determining what those entries need to be. And then we also evaluate the reasonableness of the depreciable lives of capital assets, just because that's such a big number on your statement of net position. We do have some other required communications. So there were no new pronouncements or accounting changes that had to be implemented within this year's report. We noted no material adjustments as a result of our audit procedures performed. There were no irregularities or illegal acts that were noted as a result of our audit. There were no transactions that were entered into for which there was a lack of authoritative guidance dictating how the transaction needed to be followed. No difficulties in our dealings with management. There were no independence issues, nor were we aware of management consulting with other accountants looking for a second opinion. Had any of that occurred, we would be required to communicate that, but we were not aware of that. So to summarize the accomplishments of the audit, first off, this being my first year on the audit, I was very impressed and just dealing with management and how prepared your team was. We were able to hit the ground running, and then everybody across the board, finance or all of the departments that we worked with, were very responsive and took the process very seriously, so we do appreciate that. As I mentioned, there were no findings, no material adjustments. The CARES Act, the HERF fund specifically, is a very complex grant. There have been multiple waves of that funding that have come out, each with its own nuances to the rules as to how those funds can be spent and the related reporting requirements. So we are seeing common findings related specifically to that grant, but in this case there were none. So that's a great job there. And then finally, I'll mention that and this is noted within the report as well, as relates to the report, the district did receive for the 29th consecutive year the GFOA Award in Excellence Financial Reporting. So that's, again, a pretty, it's something you should celebrate for having such a long streak. And we are very confident that when this year's report is submitted, it'll be up to an 30. So with that being said, I'd be happy to go through any questions you have on our audit process or the draft of the report, which I think you all have received.
I just wanted to make a comment, Mr. President, and my colleagues, that we did meet with, of course, with Weaver day before yesterday, and ask him a lot of questions and so forth and so on, and we found that the report was very sound. Susan, I'd like to ask you you say this is your first time.
Yes, sir.
Susan, would you like to kind of explain why is its first time? Not so much, it's just a good process that we're going through.
Yes, so you may recall that last year we issued an RFP for auditing services and awarded the contract again to Weaver. We've now made it a contractual requirement that they change the partner assigned to it at least every 5 years. And again, it's an effort to make sure that we conform to best practices at GFOA and have a fresh set of eyes as needed.
Furthermore, we had a little discussion about, that next year or thereafter, funds from the federal government will be going down, and as we heard, a lot of our assets are now went up a great deal because of these government funding things. But our enrollment is going down a little bit. We'll hear about that later. But kind of explain how you're going to manage the differences between, the question would be whether or not this will have a material adverse effect upon our financial condition for enrollment going down. I think we talked about this at the other meeting.
Sure. So essentially, when it becomes important, I mean, it's important all the time, but when it becomes important is when you're going to your rating agencies. So when we issue our next tranche of debt, if there's a noticeable decline in our net position as those federal funds get removed from the equation, then we'll just need to make sure that as part of our communication during those rating processes that we're clear about what those moving dynamics are. And they shouldn't be surprised by it, because I'm sure lots of institutions and municipalities and everybody else will have the same experience. But that's when it will become relevant to us that we would need to consider.
Are there any other questions or comments? I see none. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. It's always good from the board standpoint to get a clean audit, and thank you for Weaver's work, your work, and congratulations to all the people involved in our finance operations here at TCC for good work. Obviously, it's nice to see 29 years, almost 30 years of recognition from GOFA.
Yes,
yeah. That's sort of the gold standard as far as public entities.
That's right.
That's great.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let me go back on one item. The third item, the item that Dr. Madison presented on was item 5C, and the dollar amount on that was incorrect. Mr. Gates gave me this, and I failed to put it in the record. The dollar amount will move from $371,000 to $378,896. There was an item that had been left out of our action item, and that will be corrected before the board meeting. Okay, item 5H is consideration and approval of payment of Tarrant County College District's pro-rata share or allocation of the Tarrant Appraisal District budget. Ms. Alanis, I think everyone probably understands what this is about.
This is pretty straightforward. Yeah, they send us a bill and we bring it to you to authorize us to pay it.
Yeah. Any questions about this, what it does? It basically is funding the Tarrant, our share of the Tarrant Appraisal District's budget.
Yes, that's correct.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the report of the Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Two items. One is an informational item related to the bond program, and you have that within your packet. We'll be happy to answer any questions this evening or throughout the week or next week. The second item I'd like to spend some time on, and that's a briefing on where we are related to the Smart Building Technology Master Plan that we worked on and the status of that effort. So we do have some slides to share with you, and I think you do have them in your packet as well. So what I do want to emphasize is where we are related to the process. We had given you a draft of the plan in August and tweaked from there and gave you another draft of the plan last month, and so here we are. So this will be our master plan of our building technologies, really, the scope of application and implementation strategy related to those buildings. And this is very necessary, and it's certainly customary for an organization our size to revisit our building systems, given we have so many buildings and so many systems to track. So to put that in perspective, we do have over 4 million square feet of buildings across several campuses and service centers. And so this is a very large and complex portfolio of facilities, if you will, that meet a lot of different needs. And just, you know, you've been around to see our facilities. We have kitchens, we have plane hangars, we have pools, we have automotive garages, healthcare simulation labs, not to mention also housing 2,500 or so full-time employees. So as you look at those facilities, they're vast, they're complex, and they're varied. So some of the factors contributing to that, you know, it was just mentioned, 5 decades old here. And it's been 5 decades old under a campus-based model, okay? And so all the campuses and buildings came up at different times. They were built under different performance criteria, different energy markets. Can you imagine over the last 50 years how buildings have changed in terms of their construction and monitoring their efficiencies and their operations? Each has complex mechanical systems, again, that evolved over time and change, and across different technology platforms. Again, the technology has changed over time as to how one would address the building needs. So prior purchases have been really project by project basis, and we don't want to do that any longer. Some outliers within that, but pretty much it's been project by project. So opportunities to move forward, opportunities to do this is one. Opportunities to standardize is really what we're proposing here to move forward with in this plan. We have been good stewards of these assets, and what I want to call attention to that we have experienced a lot of cost savings in energy and such. And so in going forward with this, we may not experience a lot of cost savings, but certainly the efficiencies of operations, other operations that you'll see in a second, So we've made very good decisions along the way. But at this juncture, we have an opportunity to standardize all the operational devices that drive our buildings. And that's what we're really talking about going forward. And so we want to provide for and get as many facilities as is practical to an integrated level of operational technologies, and specifically to standardize the technology that tracks building performance, how a building is performing, its controls, temperatures, lighting, security, all of those items now to look at together. And the goal is to have an operational systems that's fully integrated across the college and, most importantly, talk to each other and talk to us of value. I'll talk about that in a second. So we'll be able to collect data that helps track performance and predict the needs of and correct course as we go. So the future state, we want systems that will operate very predictively. So we will know, we'll learn our schedules, how to warm, when to warm and cool in advance. Help large groups find rooms and unlock doors through sensors and monitoring. These are the types of things that we would be looking in a future state. Carry update schedules about capital improvements and maintenance efforts, so we will know in a more technological way the schedule in which repairs need to be made. And we'll be able to anticipate better the functionality over the long term of tracking our efforts. So we kind of know when we're going to have to do what, and that's better to plan, financially in terms of what we'll have to invest as time goes on. And think of it as your house. You have a good idea of how long your hot water heater will last, right? Okay, so that's just one house and one hot water heater. We got a lot of stuff, and we want to keep track of all of it and be able to predict the replacement, the maintenance schedule of all of it. So the next steps in bringing this forward, you have the TEDS plan as a guide. You have that. And what we will do is we will include quarterly updates on our work in this effort as part of the quarterly bond program update. So with that, we'll stand. I think that's it for any thoughts, comments, questions as to what this is, why we're doing it, and what to expect in the future.
Are there any questions for the Chancellor on this? I will recall to the board that this is an area that the board expressed considerable interest in a few months ago, about a year ago, and I appreciate the work that's gone into addressing this overall picture from a technology standpoint. I know there's been a lot of work done on it. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that pretty well wraps us up, if I'm not mistaken. We do not have an executive session, am I correct?
I believe not. Carol, no
Ms.
closed
Bracken,
session.
no executive session.
Thank you.
Okay, that completes our agenda. Is there anything? Yeah, we'll get the corrected amount. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, here it is. I have it. Great.
Mr. Barr,
Yes, ma'am.
let me congratulate you on the great job you did today. This is not often on this board history that the vice president even gets near the chair. So I
Well-
think you've done it twice, and you do a great job. Thank you.
Oh,
sir.
thank you. Kind of you to say that. I'm fearful that President Ayala is listening, and
She is listening.
she may have some guidance for me in the future. It may teach her not to miss meetings. I'm sorry she couldn't be here today. If there are no additional comments or business, then we will stand adjourned.